Bro, I feel like most women just care about you as utility. The romance really doesn't matter. Well, how do you get over this? You have to be a guy that's constantly pushing, constantly progressing. Okay. Girls need to feel that progression. They need to feel that you're constantly on your. That can come with some anxiety, but the correct woman is going to understand this, right? So that saying of them loving children and we love them, right? But here's how you bypass this: they have to want to love your children. So not their children, your children. Because in the end of the day, right? Girls that are obsessed with the guy, they want his kids. This is very important. There's a difference between a girl wanting kids and a girl wanting his kids. Those are two very different things. Okay? They have to love the children because they're yours and because they're of you. It's very hard to get to that point where you're that type of guy where a girl wants your children in the world. But that's how you get to that level. Or that's how you get to that that dynamic that every man truly wants, but usually denies to himself. We all want the same thing, man. We really do. A lot of guys cope, right? They have ego, they're ideological, whatever it is, but we all want the same thing. We really do, right? It's like we walk in the room and a girl gets a little bit shy, even if we've been with her for like a year. She gets a little shy, maybe she'll push a boundary, and you're like, no, we're not going to do it that way. And immediately she gets in this mode where she's like, uh-oh, right? That's what we all want. Not a girl's going to be like, oh, I don't care. Starts neglecting what you say, doesn't care about, about you being there, not being there. Like this is all the stuff that you've inevitably messed up somewhere if this is what you're getting. You should never let it get to that point where that's what's happening, ever. Too comfortable, too much comfort. You don't want to create so much comfort, man. It's artificial. An absurd amount of comfort is artificial. It's so against our human nature, right? So if you create too much comfort and make her too comfortable with everything, then inevitably, what's there left now? In her female brain, she'll immediately assume that maybe you're too easy. It needs to be something to climb to get all the time, right? So it always needs to be a little bit of a psychological barrier there. I'm not saying, create some crazy twisted game, right? But she always needs to feel like you're just in reach, but barely. You're just there, like she could touch you, but barely. Like at any moment, you could just go a little too far. And now she has to, that is the ideal state. That is where women really love to be, even though they always say they hate it, right? But that's only because of their own anxiety problems that have been generated for them through society, right? They like that. They need that. They need that essence, okay? This is what feminine women really desire. They need to always feel that they're one step behind him, okay? And now your job as a guy is to maintain that dance, okay? Even through age, like, oh, well, what about marriage? Okay, even in marriage, right? I'd say marriage, first off, is a construct, right? Marriage is obviously a construct. It's not something that's a natural process. So you have to work harder to maintain it in marriage, okay? You have to go above and beyond. Sometimes you got to rock the boat. Sometimes you got to introduce a little bit of distance factor. You got to make these things appear natural, though. All right. Oh, yeah, that's a good trick, actually. So, yeah, psychologically speaking, right? When our brains subconsciously perceive a yawn, if we haven't yawned in a while, we will also yawn, or they will yawn, right? So, yes, this is a bit of a cheesy trick for sure. Yeah. That constant progression sounds like a ticket to an early death only because you've convinced yourself of that. Like, look, Zadkiel, man, listen. I'm not here to say it's easy. I'm never going to sit here and be like, oh, this is an easy thing to do. If you're here watching this, is because you want information. Okay. So I'm going to give you the information. It's not easy. Nothing that's really good is ever going to be easy. If you want that, you can't just sit here and be defeatist and say, oh, well, it sounds like an early death, exhausting. Be alone, man. No one's forcing you to engage in the game. No one's forcing you to try to do all these things, okay? If you want to have the ideal situation, you have to earn this. Everything in life has a price. Every single thing. So if you just sit there and say, sounds like a ticket to early death, okay, well, you've been very conditioned into a defeatist attitude where you think you deserve something. You think you're entitled to something. You're not entitled to shit, man. No one owes you anything. All right? And I get this shit all the time, like constant whining, guys complaining and whining all the time about this shit, like, oh, early death, and oh, I don't want to do this effort. Dude, don't do it then. Just go get that five, marry her, fart around each other, be whatever, be comfortable all you want, and just accept what comes with that type of life. If you want to go above and beyond, pay the price, man. Pay the price. That's how it goes. Okay. Nothing is free, man. Nothing is free in life. And the sooner that you learn this, the better off you'll be, right? But everybody wants everything for free, man. I'm just tired of people always wanting everything for free. You guys need to be the first to understand that nothing is free. You guys need to understand this. If you're watching my, you should definitely understand this at this point. Nothing is free. Okay? Nothing. There's always a massive wall behind anything you want to excel at. There's always a price. There's always a sacrifice. Okay? You can get to that 80 percentile, right? You can get to that 80 percentile point without putting too much effort if you're a talented guy. After that point, to get into the next level, there's always a giant wall to climb because progression is exponential in nature. Okay? It just is. To reach the top, the pinnacle of something, there is an exponential factor. You always have to do 20x more to get to that 90% than you did at the 80%. All right? Why should men have to pay the price, heavier price? Why do women pay the same price? Because they're naturally more valuable than us, my friend. This is just natural order. I don't make the rules, okay? The only difference between now and 100 years ago is that before, because they needed to survive, they'll take that dependable guy. They needed him to live. Now they don't. They could just go and work for a boss who has a massive company and they can get him to pay her bills, right, through work, while simultaneously on the side looking for the perfect man. Okay, that's the difference. So why should men have to pay the price or heavier price? Because we're more disposable by nature. This is just the way it is, right? If you have a village of 10 women and one man, society could stumble. It could keep going. Inevitably, you'd have to, do some weird genetic shit where you have to make sure there's like 3/3 cousins that get together or whatever. But the point is, society can still continue on. If you have 10 men and one woman, society is over. We're toast. It's over. That's the difference. So that basal biological reality is what just makes it so. Okay, we have to pay the heavier price. But here's the turnaround on this. Okay, the truth is that we do have the greater reward in the end. Okay, so our life is harder. We do have to pay a heavier price, but at the end of it, we have a more complete life. Okay, we are the ones that truly have autonomy in our lives. A woman never truly has complete and utter autonomy in her life. Okay, she always has to be somewhat dependent on someone else for something, even if it's just physical survival. That means there's dependency. We truly can be on our own and survive. Okay, so that is the price that we have to pay, but we do have the opportunity to have something better. For them, yeah, it's maybe more front loaded. They have an easier time in some way, right? But do they have the potential to have that ultimate independent, controlling, where they have complete utter control over their environment to the same level that we do? That is now this debate, right? So instead of being attached to idealism and saying, why should we have to pay the price? It's not fair. Grow up and understand that life isn't fair for more than enough reasons, right? So to try to pretend that men and women are apples to apples you're already doing everybody a disservice. Okay. It's not apples to apples. Okay. Now, do we owe women something? No, we don't owe them anything, which is why I tell you guys, when they ask you who you're dating, don't be honest about it. You don't owe them that answer. But I am saying this: if you want the best, then you have to be the best. All right. Like, if you want that type of treatment from a woman, you have to be the best guy first. Because with that leverage, you can demand that. But you can't be an average guy making 20K a year or whatever, and basically just saying, playing video games all day and then expecting now to have the pinnacle of quality when it comes to a woman. You just won't get that. It's just not how it works. That's my point. Once again, men need to be do a lot more for society. Yeah, okay, true. But men need to be valued. Okay, but men dictate their own value by being the way they are. Okay, men Men are the ones that are giving it away for free as a cheap gimmick to try to get some pity attention from women because that's the way they've been conditioned. Okay. If men stopped giving it away for free so easily, we wouldn't have these problems. But what can you do? Men are too attached to idealism. Because men are so attached to idealism, they're going to try to turn the hoe into a housewife. They're going to get conned. All of his efforts and energy are going to go into kids that really won't respect him. And then we repeat the cycle. Like me and you can have this conversation all day. It does nothing, right? There's always going to be that guy that's going to go out there and give it all for free because that's what he thinks he should do. And he's unaware and he's pedestalizing women, being completely, just doing what he thinks is the right thing because I'm the nice guy. I'm the hero. I'm going to be the different guy. I'm going to be the change. All this bullshit. And in the end, he's just going to get conned anyways. So we can sit here and say men need to be valued more. Who dictates that? In the end, it's a zero-sum game. I'm here to convert over as many as I can to understanding their value, but unfortunately, it's going to be a bit of a perpetual problem. Like me by myself, I can only do so much. Even if I, get to the end game of all of it and, have millions of followers and everybody buys in, and there's always going to be those guys that pretend that they know better. They're going to go down that other path. It's just inevitable.